Okay, so there is a just to understand the perspective linking Elul and the Parsha. There is the Torah discusses why it is we blow shofar on Rosh Hashanah. It brings a pirkei Rebbe Lezer. It says, "B'Rosh Chodesh Elul, Omar Kodesh Baruch Hu Moshe Hashem said to Moshe Rabbeinu, Alei Elai Ha'ara, come up to the mountain. She'oz Ola Lakav Luchos Achronos. We know that's when he went up on Rosh Chodesh Elul to receive the second set of luchos. The Haviru Shofar Machne, Moshe Ola Lahar, and they pronounced this shofar to say Moshe's gone up the mountain. Shliyitu Oid Achar Avodah Zarah. So you shouldn't stray after Avodah Zarah. In other words, end of the Egel Azov, new chapter, turning a new page. HaKadosh Baruch Hu Nis'ale, Hashem himself went up, so to speak, both the shofar, Shnema Ola Elokim V'Sruah, Psukim we say on Rosh Hashanah, Hashem, so to speak, goes up with the shofar. Therefore, it's Kinuch HaChamenu Zal, Shu Tokim Rosh Chodesh Elul, B'chol Shana B'Shana. You blow the shofar on Rosh Chodesh Elul every year, B'chol HaChodesh, and indeed the whole month, K'dei Lahazi Yisrael Sh'yasu Tshuva. So as to warn us to do tshuva, Shnema Mitaka Shofar Be'evim Am Lo Yichrodu, is it possible to blow the shofar and the people don't tremble? K'dei La'arbev HaSotan, and also to confuse the Sotan. So there's various ideas. But the key point that I wanted to bring out from the Torah here is the fact that we see immediately that the shofar and Elul itself exists in a place of almost negativity. It's a difficult place. It doesn't begin in a place where things are good and positive and wonderful, right? The context of Elul and the blowing of the shofar in Elul is a symbol of the fact that in the context of when it was first blown, it was a reminder, you messed it up the first time, don't mess it up again. You got things wrong. Things went wrong with Egel Hazov. We have the timeline is you have the 3 sets of 40 days, and when the luchos are smashed on Shivos B'Tammuz, you have then the next set of 40 days, which go from Shivos B'Tammuz until Rosh Chodesh Elul, and then finally the last set when finally we're able to put things right. So the idea that Elul exists in a place of that idea of almost negativity is actually found in a beautiful idea to do with the concept of Ani L'Dodi, V'Dodi Li. And we know that Elul is always summed up by those words, Ani L'Dodi, V'Dodi Li. But what's really interesting is that the context of that pasuk is very, very specific. And as with all of Shir Hashirim, if you take 4 words by themselves and you struggle to understand them beyond, and everyone quotes Ani L'Dodi, V'Dodi Li, right? That's Elul, close to Hashem. We have to read the psukim. We have to know what it's talking about in Shir Hashirim. The whole of Shir Hashirim has to be learnt properly with Rashi. You have to understand it obviously and it is, as we know, primarily, certainly as understood by most Mefarshim, it's understood to be a metaphor about the relationship between us and Hashem, right? What specific point is this going on? And the answer is found in the way Rashi explains these psukim. It's the beginning of Pasuk of Perek Vov in Shir Hashirim. And the question is asked, Ona halach doideich, the nations of the world, if you like, try and wind up the Jewish people, trying to aggressively attack them. And they say, where is your beloved gone? Hayofa Banoshim, where is Hashem gone? Why has, or the Hayofa Banoshim could be referring to the Jewish people, but the point is that because the beloved here is Hashem. So it's saying, where has your relationship has gone? Hashem has left you. It's finished. Where has he turned? Where has he gone away? Let us seek him together with you. The context, says Rashi, is that the Bnei Yisrael are coming back, or they're at the stage when they have been given permission to build the second Beis Hamikdash. They're building the second Beis Hamikdash, and when they're given that permission, they begin to build it. The nations of the world say, "Let's join together with you." Let's say, why should it be? Why should you do this alone? Let's come with you. If he is indeed going to allow you to go back and rebuild, then why shouldn't we join you? We want to be part of it as well. And the response is, Dodi Yorad Leganoi, Hashem has told us to build the Beis HaMikdash. We are meant to do it, right? And he goes on to explain how that fits into the rest of the pasuk, laruvos habosem, liros baganim, and the idea is that, that it talks about the idea that there are those who wouldn't come back to build the second Beis Hamikdash, and effectively, when it talks about velilkot shoshanim, talks about gathering roses. Shomeo Makshiv, Rashi says, Nidbarim b'Torah, they see us listening, keeping the Torah, to keep the words in the Torah itself. Uma sha'atem omrim, and that which you say, levaksho imonu v'livnos imonu, you turn around to us and say, we'd like to build the Beis Hamikdash together with you. Maybe, why should you have this unique relationship? Ani l'doidi v'lo yatem lo v'lo tivnu imonu. I am to my beloved and not you. It's our unique personal relationship that we have with Hashem, and you don't get to build it with us. As it says, Lo lochem v'lono, it's a pasuk in Ezra, livnos beis Elokeinu. It's not for us together to do it. It's our private thing. This is about our private relationship with Hashem. Now, that's the context of Ani l'dodi v'dodi. It's a dialogue between the nations of the world and the Bnei Israel at the time, specifically when they're going back to build the second Beis Hamikdash. And that was a very difficult time in our history, although it sounds wonderful. They were going back to build the second Beis Hamikdash, everything's good. But of course it wasn't. They had permission from the Persians. That's the only way they could do it. Koresh gave them permission to build it. They were under the thumb of the Persians. It wasn't simple at all. And they had to argue that there is a uniqueness to their relationship, and they had to fight for it, and it wasn't simple. And the nations of the world were challenging them and saying, who says you've got that relationship anymore? We're all together, all the same now. No. And therefore, on that point, it says, Ani l'dodi v'dodi. So you see the same idea, that the context of these words, the context of Elul, is not one that begins in a place of where everything is wonderful. On the contrary, things are difficult. It's a difficult time, it's a difficult place, and somehow we have to try and rebuild from that. And the point, therefore, is that what Elul really represents, if you look at it in this way, and you link the creation of the second set of luchos, right, with the idea of building the second Beis Hamikdash, is that Elul is about a second chance. That's what it is. Elul is about a second chance. Think about it, right? The two things connect. That's what it is. Elul is the time when we get a second chance in the midbar to try again. Okay, we messed it up with Egel Azov, but we have a new opportunity. Now we get a second chance. And the whole context, how we understand the name Elul and what it represents, Ani l'dodi, is the context is the second Beis Hamikdash, it's the second chance. That's what Elul represents.
And that's what Shiva is.
Exactly. That's the point. And I would say perhaps even more than that. It's more than Shiva. It's not more than Shiva, but it's like when you think everything it's over. I don't. When the luchos is smashed, right? That's it. We're finished, right? I mean, there's no when the Beis Hamikdash is destroyed, you think that's the end. There's no more, And Elul represents there's a beginning. There's a new beginning. Everything's over, but it's not. You can start again. That's what Elul really is. It reminds me of a lovely story that I've often thought about. I'll keep it anonymous. Is a gentleman who I knew very well in my previous community. He was a remarkable individual simply because he was basically a medical miracle. Like his whole story, I mean, it's amazing. Like it didn't really kind of make sense. He was someone who underwent like incredibly difficult situations several times. He had like a terrible accident, and he was in a coma, whatever. No one thought he would recover and everything else. And then he made this like full recovery. And then several years later, he had another terrible incident. He became terribly ill, and everyone was like, "Oh, you've only got to do." And then he was like, he was like invincible. I mean, thank God, it was amazing. And I remember like saying to him, he said to me, sorry, he turned around to me once and he says, Rabbi, he says, I've been given a second chance. I'm going to grab it with both hands. And it's just lovely the way he said that, like with the sort of, I don't know, you call it like almost like a mulapshuta, he said, look, I've been given a second, Hashem has given me a second chance. I'm going to make the most of it. And it was just a lovely idea and a way of thinking about things. So how does this relate to the parsha? How does this relate to the parsha? So I think there are a number of themes in this parsha that directly connect to this idea of a second chance. At the beginning of the parsha, of course, you have the parsha of Bikurim, and the Kliyokar points out here that what this really represents is the idea of us not falling into the trap that because we have finally arrived, that's what Bikurim really is, right? We finally arrived. The farmer has finally made it. It's been a long journey. We've gone all the way through from Mitzrayim and through the Midbar and everything else, and we finally arrived and we had to conquer the land, and eventually we actually have something from Eretz Yisrael. That's what Bikurim is. It's like the final destination, right? Final destination. You come into the land and it's yours, right? I mentioned the beginning of this last night, right? The idea of Yerusha Yeshiva, right? By that time, I don't know if anyone was, listening, but whatever, the idea is Yerusha Yeshiva. It's mine. I'm here. Says the Kliyakar. That is the danger. Only twice in the Torah. It's an amazing thing. He says, are these words used? Yeah, good question. Those words, you will inherit it and you'll dwell in the land. Twice in the Torah. It's a good question. Where's the other time? It's not easy. It's not an easy one. The clue is there's a few. No, it's only a few weeks ago. The clue is only a few weeks ago. When that is part of the mitzvah. It isn't.
Is it
Shoftim
I know that boy needed it 25 times.
The king, the Melech.
Okay.
The Parshas, the Melech with the king, it says the same thing. It's okay, don't worry. Ki Savo el haaretz. It's almost exactly the same words. Ki Savo el haaretz with the Parsha of the king, appointing king. Asher Hashem lekecha nosein loch v'yishtav yoshavta bo. The same thing, like almost exactly the same. It's almost exactly the same, right? Exactly the same words, right? You come into the land, and you inherit it, and you live in the land, right? So, what is the what is the connection? What is the parallel between these two things? It's completely different. Current point of king. So the answer he says is that after Yerusha v'Yeshiva, after you dwell in the land and after you're there and you've made your home, that is the most dangerous moment. That is the time, as the Pasuk says later, the end of the Dor, by Ishman Yeshurun, by Yivot, this is the time when you get very comfortable and you can rebel. People rebel, right? Because when you're really comfortable, you're like, okay, listen, things are great, right? I don't have to worry about anything. And they want to be like everyone else. Therefore, the king, they want to appoint a king. We want to be like everyone else because we're feeling very comfortable and settled. So we want to be like all our nations. We need to have the same status. And so too in Bikurim as well. He says, Asher achi Yerusha v'Yeshiva yasim livam loymar ki lohem haaretz v'chavim Yerusha v'yishkechoes Hashem. They might kind of elevate their hearts and forget about Hashem, and that's why the Torah comes to tell us Asher Hashem lekecha nosein l'chon nachalot. Don't forget that Hashem has given it to you as an inheritance. So both of them have the same idea, and therefore we can understand that in both cases, what's going on here is Hashem is turning round to the Bnei Yisrael and saying, I'm going to give you a second chance to bring me into your lives, right? What is it? You've settled and there's a danger and maybe you already have forgotten me, right? And that's why you're asking for a king. Or you've worked on the land really hard and you've kind of pushed your Yiddishkeit a little bit to the side because you've been working really, really hard and building yourself up in the farmer context, which we can translate into the modern context. You understand the same idea? And Hashem says, I'm going to give you a second chance. I'm going to tell the king that there are rules how he's going to behave. He's going to carry a Sefer Torah everywhere. He's going to set an example. I'm going to give you a chance to utilize this opportunity, which, in a way, could be negative to your spirituality, to your ruchnias, and I'm going to allow you to build yourself with it. And with the Bikurim as well, what does it do? The entire process allows the farmer. It's designed to allow the farmer to say and to believe Hashem that it's Hashem that's giving you this inheritance, right? The word nachala is different to Yerusha. Some of the Moshe explain this. I think there's a difference between the two. The Yerusha is just inheritance, mine. Like I get it, right? It's mine. So I've got it. I received it. A nachala is something that flows. Nachal is a river. It flows. It doesn't stop with me. It's not like it comes from somewhere and it goes somewhere, right? It's not like it ends with me. This is it, right? It's mine. Nachal is something. We're part of a. There's something flowing here. Ultimately from Hashem. I'm going to see what can I pass on to the next generation. That's what a nachala is. Hashem's giving you a nachala. It's not that it stops with you. This idea. So what does Bikurim do? Everything about Bikurim is designed to help. There's a Mishnah in Bikurim, beautiful, beautiful Mishnah, which many of you seen before, but it's just worth just understanding the impact of this Mishnah. The Mishnah describes the process in the third paragraph of Bikurim. Ketzad Malinas of Bikurim. How did they used to take the Bikurim up to Yerushalayim? There were certain groups that were called the Mamodos. They were grouped together in the city of the Mamot. They would stay deliberately. They would stay in the center of the city, the Rechova Sha'ir. V'lo nechnasim lebatim, they didn't go inside the houses. That was because of a concern they might become tomei. If there was a mace in the house or something, they're going to Yerushalayim, they want to stay tar. V'lamashkim, and in the morning, and in the morning, the appointed person will get up and say, "Come, let us go, let us arise, let us go up to Tzio, into the house of Hashem Elokeinu." And you've got to picture the scene. All these individual farmers, all the villages, the shtetls, they come together, and it is like a river. They're like flowing towards Yerushalayim. They're coming together, and they gather together first in the small villages, and they get together, and they're all coming together to the towns. And they're camping out in the middle of the city. And in the morning, there's this big proclamation. Let's go up together. Let's dedicate ourselves. Let's commit together. It's designed, the whole process is designed to bring us together in such a way that we don't forget our origins. And also to remind us that we can't do it alone. It's a very powerful idea as well. Especially in the second chance mode, there's this idea of don't try it yourself. Don't try and think you can do everything by yourself. You can't. You need to be together. You need a tzibur. You need to come together. That's what we do. That's what we do. This whole period, we feel very much together. We can't do it alone. The antithesis of Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, right, is thinking, I'm going to go away and have a quiet break somewhere in a hotel room, and I'll daven a really big stuff. I'll take my own shofar. I'll blow the shofar myself somewhere in a hotel room in Dubai, whatever. It's going to be great. It's going to be so spiritual. It's going to be a favor. Yeah, exactly. That's true. Maybe meaning it, but even if someone said that, you'd laugh, right? Yeah. Okay. Other times in the year, yes, but these times where you want to be with the tzibur, and even often you want to be with your tzibur. You don't want to just be, anywhere. Like I grab a minute. I want to be with my tzibur. I want to make sure that I'm in this together. We're with each other. And it's there. It's the same as the Bikurim. We come together to try and literally, bina letzio, ascend to Tzio, right? So that's the first example. The second example is the concept of vidui maisa. Rav Hirsch has a beautiful perspective on this. It's the second parsha in the second bit in the parsha, which is the second parsha of the parsha, which is basically the idea that when you have to basically make a declaration after every 3 years saying you've given all the mice, everything I need to do, truma, mice, everything I was supposed to do in terms of the things that Torah requires me to give, mice oni to the poor, mice sheni to Yerushalayim, mice rishon to the living. I've done everything. I haven't forgotten anything. Now it's unique. This idea, nowhere else in the Torah are you expected to make a retrospective declaration, right? That I've done what I was supposed to do. We have another example in the Torah of course, we have vidui, the concept of vidui, as in a tshuva concept, and how we learn that from the Torah. But there are no other mitzvahs where you have to make a declaration that I fulfilled the Torah. The Torah mandates such a declaration, right? There is, of course, like Pesach Sheni, where you get a second chance, but that's different, right? This is where I've got to declare that I've done something. Rav Hirsch says that this is very significant. It's the only mitzvah which requires that, as I said, like if you like that retrospective, that idea that we look backwards, and what you notice, and that sort of emphasizes something powerful about it. What you also notice is, if you look at the psukim carefully, you'll see that there is a particular emphasis on Ma'aser Sheni, specifically Ma'aser Sheni. A lot of the parts of the psukim seem to refer specifically to Ma'aser Sheni. Now, Ma'aser Sheni, as we know, was given in the second and every year apart from the third and the 60th, right? Was given to was taken to Yerushalayim, and it talks about how I didn't consume it while I was an oinain in Avelus. I didn't destroy it in such a way where I made sure that I ate it b'tara, everything else. And Ma'aser, what does Ma'aser Sheni itself represent? Ma'aser Sheni, Ma'aser Rishon, Rav Hirsch is like this. Ma'aser Rishon is essentially just the ruchnius alone, spirituality alone. That's what it is, because you give it to the Kohen, also to the Levi, which represents, the Kohen and Levium represent Torah, etc., etc. That's our life's mission. It's the ideal. Ma'aser Oni represents our fellow man. That's what it is. You give it to someone who needs it, right? A poor person who requires it. So it represents our responsibility towards other people. What is Ma'aser Sheni? Ma'aser Sheni is about sanctifying ourselves, the Kedusha of the Guf. You need to go to Yerushalayim and you need to consume it there. See the connection with Bikur? You need to go and you need to consume it in Yerushalayim, right? You need to take your life and turn it into something spiritual. That's what you need to do. That is the idea. That is the message of that is the message of Yerushalayim. That is the message of Ma'aser Sheni. The idea is don't get drawn down into this world to the extent that you forget about what really counts. Take this world that you live in and give it Kedusha. Make sure that it has meaning. Don't just allow yourself to float through life. That's what Ma'aser Sheni represents, where you just effectively are just a consumer and you don't remember what I'm consuming for and what the purpose of being a consumer is. And that's why you do that by symbolically, you take some of it and you take it to Yerushalayim to remind you of that. And he says that it's fascinating that Ma'aser Sheni concludes Sefer Vayikra. You look right at the end of Parshas B'chukosa and you'll see Ma'aser Sheni is right at the end of Sefer Vayikra. And you'll also note that basically Ma'aser Sheni concludes the Taryag mitzvahs. You're going to tell me it's not. Vidui Ma'aser is not the 613. But there are two other mitzvahs after this, right? What are the two mitzvahs? There are only two mitzvahs left after this mitzvah. The mitzvah of Vidui Ma'aser, this idea, what? Hakel and writing Sefer Torah. And he says that's different because those are like mitzvahs which embrace the whole Torah.
They're not individual.
They're not personal. The last personal mitzvah in the Torah is not his Vidui Ma'aser.
Okay.
So of which Ma'aser Sheni features very prominent. The idea of declaring you're given the Maestros. So because the last two he understands are like these overarching mitzvahs. Write a Sefer Torah, the king reads Sefer Dvarim to the whole of Bnei Yisrael. You can see the difference. They're like those are like the
big communal.
Yeah, exactly, right? Exactly. So you see the power of this, the importance of this. And Vidui Ma'aser, again, if you link it to this idea of a second chance, it's really what it is. Because the Torah is telling you, make sure you've done it properly. And every 3 years, there's an institution that's going to remind you and give you a chance. Because if you haven't done it, that's the time where you have to do it, right? At the end of every 3 years, when you make this declaration, you've got a chance now to do it. Meaning every time you've got the opportunity, as a reminder there, don't give up. Don't give up. You've got a chance. You can still do it. You can still do it again. You've always got a chance to make up and make sure that you don't forget. You don't forget about what really counts in life. There's just a beautiful story, a very powerful story actually. There was a granddaughter and a grandson of the Chofetz Chaim who met in Yerushalayim many years after the Chofetz Chaim was nifta. But there was a big difference between them. The grandson, I think, was Reb Hillel Zaks, who was a well-known grandson of the Chofetz Chaim, and the granddaughter was one of the granddaughters of the Chofetz Chaim, who unfortunately had left the path and gone into involvement after communist Russia. She wasn't part of the. She didn't stay from it, unfortunately. And he said to her, "Do you have any memories of the Zayda? Do you remember anything about the Zayda? She was a young girl when he was still alive." And she said, "Yeah." She said, "I went back. I came from Warsaw. She was living in Warsaw, and she came to visit him. And she must have been. It sounds like from the story she was either a teenager or a young adult, whatever. And she went in to see the Chofetz Chaim, and she saw him sitting there in his little room in Radin. And she said, "This is how she related the story to her cousin." And she said he was sitting in the room, and I said to her, "Zayda, isn't it time that you leave the darkness of Radin for the light? It's time, you've been sitting in this, wherever you are, 90 years old, in the darkness of the medieval world. It's time for you to move on. It's time for you to move into the light." And she meant that obviously in more ways than one, right? And he turned around to her and said that, let's think about what you mean when you talk about the light. What does it mean to move from darkness to light? The light is, the advances of science, the advances of the modern world, technology, everything else. Everything is improving, everything is growing, everything is fantastic, right? And he said, "I'll tell you what's going to happen. This is where the story is recorded. All this technology is very important. It's incredible. All these things, it's going to do all these things to the world. It's true. And they'll also allow them to design weapons," he said. Chofetz Chaim said to his granddaughter, "which can threaten to destroy the whole world." That's what he says. So he said, "Really, what's going on?" He says, "I sit here in the light. I sit here in the light with the work of empowering man, right? Empowering mankind improving ourselves. That's the idea. That's what we're here for. That's what we design. That's what I'm here for. That's what I'm doing. That's why I live the life I live. Whereas the light that you refer to is really working, ultimately leading to the destruction. That was what the Chofetz Chaim said to his granddaughter. That was how the story is. Quite a remarkable story. And she related that story. It's remarkable in terms of his insight. But I think in connection with this message, the idea being expressed here is the Torah is trying to tell us, especially in the context of finishing the Torah mitzvahs, this idea of Ma'aser Sheni, that make sure we go through life with a sense of focusing on what counts, understanding that we can understand in our lives that we need the physical sense of who we are, where we are. That's what we wouldn't be able to live otherwise. But make sure that we always remember that there is a reason, there's a purpose, there's a focus, there's a reason for doing what we're doing. And if we do that, then we can always make sure that what we do in life counts. And the Vidui Ma'aser is the sense of sometimes we can go through life and think, I've missed it though. I'm too kind of embroiled in this world, and I can't. It's so hard. It's so difficult to find that sense of ruchnius, that sense of spirituality, to find the thing which will make a difference and take the meaning and the connection in my life that I'm looking for, because I'm too far away from it. And on that, the response comes, Vidui Ma'aser. No, you can visit it again. You get a chance to make sure, have you done everything you should do? I've got a chance to do it now. That is Elul. That is what Elul is. Elul is the Bnei Yisrael picking themselves up from the destruction, either the destruction of the luchos, right? Elul is the rebuilding, but they have to put the pieces together, literally. They have to build the second set themselves. There's no going to come in Hashemayim, right? Moshe Rabbeinu is told, go and find it inside your tent. That's where he has to hew it out himself, right? The second luchos. Time of the Bayis Sheni. They're going to rebuild. They have to rebuild the Bayis Sheni. Anila Dodi V'Dodi Li. They're being challenged. Who says you're unique anymore? You're the same as everyone else. You have to get the permission of the Persians to build the Beis Hamikdash. No, I have that relationship. We still have that relationship. We get a second chance. That is Parshas Ki Savo. You get a second chance. You get a second chance in every way, and that is the message of Chodesh Elul. Thank you. Thank you for coming, and thank you once again, Yoni, for hosting. Bring all your friends. Bring all your friends next week. It's going to be a very special one next week as well. We're going to do the Martin Smulovich is hosting. Yeah, Martin Smulovich is hosting. We're going to do half an hour share, and Moshe Friedman is bringing his guitar. We're going to do a pre-Rosh Hashanah Kumzit next week. Yeah.
Also, can I just say, I forget, this completely ties into what we were talking about at Shalshunas 2 weeks ago with the doubling up in the Dov Hashem.
Yes.
It's all about second chance.
Yes, doubling up with. Oh, yes, that's right. Yes, you're right. I didn't think of that connection. That was the. That was the shit. No. I don't know. Thank you. I appreciate that.
No, it's amazing.
No, exactly. No, I think it's chizuk, right? You know, like when
exactly. That's the whole point.
Exactly. Thank you for that. And that's
I just thought that you were going to
no. It's just So there's so much here. We're not like no, 100%. Yeah, you're right. Thank you.
So what we do is
I don't know.
No, he's gonna Moshe is gonna come. You've got a guitar and everything else. So we're going through we'll prepare his voice. Yeah. Yeah, we'll go through. No, just get in the spirit with Yom Neroin. Thanks for joining. See you soon, yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Pleasure. Thanks a lot. Take care. Have a good evening.
it's not started.